All right, welcome guys to the NBA live stream. We got 6 games to talk about, a shorter slate, and running a little bit short on time as well. So this is gonna be a really quick one. We'll go over what we know so far, take a look at the Vegas odds, and I'll go team by team. And I want to leave a couple minutes for questions at the end. So Bogdan was expected to play earlier, now questionable. We'll see about that. They said he's going to be on a minutes limit. We don't know what that minutes limit is. So depending on the minutes limit, possibly playable if he's like on a 20 minutes limit or something like that. Aldridge ruled out. The rest of the Spurs guys out that were have been out. Jeff Green, that's for Wednesday. Or the stuff's for Wednesday. We got Westbrook, Beal, Matthews, Rui, and Wagner starting. Jaylen Brown is available to play. Definitely, for me, it takes Tatum and Kemba out of play for me. Marc Gasol ruled out, so this is pretty big news. I'm curious to see what the Lakers do with the starting lineup. Do they start Montrez? If he does start, I think he's a really good play in the mid-range. Maybe they start a guy, Damian Jones, who is also questionable, so I have to keep an eye on that one. Kyle Anderson also ruled out. That is pretty big. So that kind of solidifies, in my opinion, the minutes for guys like Desmond Bane, guys like Justice Winslow. I think they're both pretty good value plays. You can even, Brandon Clark too. So I'm pretty high on this Memphis Grizzlies team. Also, we got news that Jimmy Butler is out. That's huge. Obviously, Goran Dragic, Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero get a massive boost. I like all three. You can even look to Bam Adebayo at the top. All right, so taking a look at these Vegas odds, Memphis and Washington's a 237.5 over under. The Wizards are 1-point favorites. Clippers and Celtics a 221.5 over under. The Clippers are 3.5-point favorites. Hawks, Heat a 223.5 over under. The Heat are 2-point favorites. Knicks and Spurs a 215 over under. The Knicks are 2-point favorites. Nuggets and Bucks a 235.5 over under. The Bucks are 8-point favorites. And Suns, Lakers 215.5 over under. The Lakers are 1-point favorites. All right, so let's start off with Memphis and Washington. Memphis is a team I want to load up on. Absolutely love Memphis today. John Morant, Jonas Valanciunas, in my opinion, two of the best plays of the slate. John Morant should play 35-plus minutes and just one of the best possible matchups in a 7K. Jonas Valanciunas is 7-2. He was in foul trouble last game. I'm not worried about it at all. Previous games, 40 and 43 fantasy points. Love Ja, love JV here. I think you can make the argument for Dylan Brooks. I'm pretty high on Brandon Clark at 4.9K. I think he probably plays mid to high 20s minutes, maybe a little bit more. I like him as a value play. Desmond Bane is starting. Not a super high usage guy. Did go forward 30 last game. Fantasy points, that is. I'm expecting mid 20s minutes from him at almost mid price for sure in play. I like, again, Justice Winslow off the bench. I think he plays mid 20s minutes. So Winslow, Bane. I mean, they're going to use other guys too, like Tillman, Tyus Jones will probably get in the rotation. I'm expecting probably, low to mid teens minutes for these guys. Both, not completely out of play, but would probably rather get to Bane and Winslow. Gorgie Jang, he's like probably not going to play much. Then Conchar might play a little bit too, but I think that's getting a little bit too cute. So really, my main interest lies at the top with JV, value, Clark, and then Winslow and Bane. I'm pretty high on Memphis. Definitely think you can play multiple players here. Moving on to the Washington Wizards. Westbrook versus Beal. Again, for me, it's going to be Westbrook. You guys know that by now. I always lean towards guys that do more of the peripherals. Beal probably has more upside if he's shooting the ball really well, like we saw last game, went for 62 fantasy points, but I prefer Westbrook at a similar price. Value-wise for the Wizards, good luck. Just good luck if you play anyone. That's all I'll tell you. Clippers and Celtics. Ooh, sorry. So on the Clippers side, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, both seem a little bit too cheap. 8.8K and 8.4K. They will be lower owned in the slate. There's a lot of stars that look good. So these guys still will, even though they're underpriced, they will be low owned. I'm fine if you land in either of them. Would prefer Kawhi, I think, to Paul George if you made me pick. The value on the Clippers, I just don't think we have to do it now on the slate, so I'm probably not going to go there. Moving on to Boston, Jaylen Brown is back, so that kind of takes Tatum and Kemba Walker out of play. Really don't have a ton of interest in the Boston side. Atlanta and Miami. So on the Atlanta Hawks side, Trae Young for tournaments at 9.6K, I think is a decent contrarian option, and he will go overlooked. We have Giannis in the slate. We have Jokic. We have Ja. We have Randall on the slate. There's a lot of good spend ups. I think Trey will go overlooked, but again, the upside is 50 plus with him. Capella, JC, just seem priced about right. John Collins, that is. Herter, Gallinari, no one really else looks good. I'm not going to Tony Snell at 3.9K. I don't care how many minutes he plays. I'm not playing Tony Snell. All right, on the Miami Heat side, so the big news, obviously, no Jimmy Butler. So Bam Adebayo at the top looks good, and the three guards, Hero, Dragic, Nunn. This kind of feels, honestly, like the Toronto situation when they're fully healthy with Van Fleet, Lowry, and Siakam with the Miami guards. I kind of feel like it's a roulette. Like, Kendrick Nunn had the best game last game. he will probably be the most popular. Will he necessarily be the highest scoring of these guards? I don't know, right? So he probably will be the highest owned, but I'm perfectly fine going back to Dragic, right? Dragic was the chalk last game. He was a little bit of a bust. People will go off Dragic, and people are going to go box score watch. They're going to see Nunn at the big game. They're going to go Nunn. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm just saying Kendrick Nunn will be higher owned than Goran Dragic. And then Tyler Hero at 6K. I think he might be the lowest owned of the bunch because he only played 20 minutes of his first game back. But again, I like all three. If you're going to ask me which one I prefer, I don't have an answer to you. I don't have an answer. I think it's kind of a guessing game. You can definitely play more than one, too. Yeah, Bam at a buyout, the top at 8-7, I think is a safe play. Should play mid-30s minutes. Good matchup. So I do like him. Value-wise, I don't know if we have to go to anyone here. Iguodala's at 3.8. He probably plays about 20-ish minutes. Not a super high usage guy. As the last piece, you can do it. Kelly Olynyk probably plays around 25 to 30 minutes. Again, you can play him as well. A little bit better on the offensive end than Iguodala at this point in his career. All right, New York and San Antonio. So on the New York side, Julius Randle's the guy for me at 9.3K. Do like him a good amount. He's a guy, again, that can fill up the stat sheet. Playing huge minutes, too. Is Taj Gibson confirmed out yet, or is he still... He is out. Yeah. So Julius Randle and Nerlens Noel are going to play huge minutes. Randle's been playing some of the backup five when Noel's not out there. I'm really high on Julius Randle at that price point, and I really like Nerlens Noel, too. He's a guy, 40 minutes. Not a super high usage guy, but I think he's a safe play at this price point. And then Derrick Rose at 5.9K, I do like as well. He should start at point guard, should play mid-30s minutes. Again, a higher usage guy. So Randle, Rose, Nerlens Noel for me. That's really it. Yeah, that's assuming I think Alfred Payton is still doubtful. I don't expect him to play. That's really it for New York. On the San Antonio side, honestly, not a ton of love. I know there's no LaMarcus Aldridge. I think Jakob Poeltl at 6.1K probably plays mid-30s minutes. I think he might be my favorite Spur, just because there's no real competition for minutes now with no Aldridge. So, I think he, as long as he's out of foul trouble, plays mid-30s minutes. So, Poeltl's probably the guy. DeRozan and Dejounte Murray, more contrarian plays, but still viable for tournaments. Let's see. Going down a bit more. Trey Lyles is a value play. I think is a fair play. 26, 37, and 27 minutes the last 3 games. No Aldridge. He might play a little bit more. Not a super high usage guy, but 19, 21, and 19 fantasy points the last 3 games. In play for value. I will mention a high risk, high reward value play. Luka Samanic has played 19, 14, and 17 minutes the last 3 games. He's almost at min price. Maybe he plays a little bit more. You never know with Pop, but again, that's not something I feel really good about. Denver, Milwaukee. So this game should be really fun to watch here. Nikola Jokic at the top at 10.8K. If you can get to him, like his upside. High floor, high ceiling. So, yeah, love Jokic at the top. Murray, MPJ, more contrarian options, in my opinion. Let's see. Oh. Okay. Yeah, Steven, if you don't like it, you can go watch another stream. That's fine. But back to Denver, Murray and Michael Porter Jr., I think would you rather me lie to you and say, oh, I feel really good about Kendrick Nunn? No, I'm being honest, right? There's no real rhyme or reason for, who it's going to be for Atlanta. I think, or who it's going to be for Miami. I think any one of those 3 guards can get there, and I think even 2 can get there. Trying to pinpoint which one it's going to be, it's a little bit difficult. So I'm just being honest. But back to Denver. Murray, MPJ, and more in play for tournaments. Let's see. Scrolling down a bit more, I think Monte Morris at 4.6K is a guy that probably plays about 30 minutes. Not a super high usage guy. Safer value play, right? Probably not going to kill you, but probably not going to win you a tournament. I think probably gets around 20-ish to 25 fancy points. PJ Dozier was kind of chalk last night in the higher dollar stuff. Did only play 18 minutes. I think a lot of other people expected him to play more with no Campozo, right? That was 25 to 30 minutes out of the rotation that myself and a lot of people thought would go to Dozier. Instead, they brought Vlatko Kankar into the rotation for some reason. I don't know why. Will Mike Malone do that again? I'm not sure. If he doesn't, then I think Dozier has upside to probably play 25 plus minutes. So this really just depends with what Mike Malone does with his rotation there with Kankar. But yeah, I think Dozier is playable for sure at almost mid price. On the Milwaukee Bucks side, Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think, is probably the best spend up of like the top guys, with like Jokic, LeBron. He has been on fire recently, even with Drew back. I mean, he was really limited the last game, so I do like Giannis a good amount there at the top. Again, I think he's probably my favorite spend up of like the guys at the very top. Middleton, Drew Holiday, more contrarian options in my opinion. I don't even think I would play Drew, to be honest. He only played 18 minutes that first game back. They're kind of taking it easy on him. But with Drew back, and that kind of hurts Middleton. That takes those secondary plays out of play. I will mention Brook Lopez at 4.1K. I think he's a pretty good value play. 35, 31 minutes last couple games. We know Denver's a big team. I think he probably gets around 30 minutes. He's not been a great point per minute guy, but like if we get around 30 minutes, I think he's a safer value play at the price. Bobby Portis more the high risk, high reward play. We know his minutes fluctuate. We know when the minutes are there, he most of the time will get you there, kind of like a Chris Boucher. So I would say he's decent for tournaments. Maybe Brook Lopez gets in foul trouble. That's where you could see a big game there from Bobby Portis. Finally, Phoenix and the Lakers. On the Phoenix side, honestly, there's not a ton of love here. I think Booker at 8.1K, contrarian option. Chris Paul would probably be the guy of the main three stars there for Phoenix I would look to. And that's just because of the assist, right? He is handling the ball a ton. He's got, again, triple-double upside, honestly, 9, 10, 15, 15 assists the last 4 games. So I think Chris Paul is probably the safest option of the top 3. Now, DeAndre Ayton with no Marc Gasol, I think, does get a boost. Like, he'll probably be matched up against, like, Montrezl Harrell or Damian Jones or, like, undersized Markieff Morris. I don't really know who else the Lakers can throw on him. So I actually think Ayton does get a boost with no Marc Gasol and is in play for tournaments. Now, we know DeAndre Ayton, even in really good matchups, he is busted for us, right? Remember against Washington? I think it was like a month and a half ago. Just one of the best possible spots, and he completely busted. So I just never fully trust Ayton. But again, it is a boost for with no Marc Gasol in there. And then finally on the LA Lakers side, so the big news again, no Marc Gasol. He was playing around 20 minutes. So I'm curious to see what the Lakers do with the starting lineup, right? They have Damian Jones, revenge game narrative, if he does play. He's day-to-day, so he's like questionable, I think. If he starts at center, then I think he's a good value play at min price. I wouldn't expect huge minutes, but I would probably, I would think we get like the Marc Gasol minutes of like 15 to 20-ish. And at min price, that would be enough for me to get to Damian Jones. So if he starts, I would like him for value. If he can't play, then I think their only other option is to start Montrezl Harrell and probably play him 30 minutes. So if Montrezl Harrell starts, I think he's one of the better plays in the mid-range. So this is just a situation we'll have to keep an eye on. Right, if Damian Jones starts, then I think it's probably going to be the same situation for Montrezl Harrell of like mid-20s minutes, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. If Montrezl starts, I think we probably get close to 30 minutes from him, maybe a little bit more. And then Damian Jones himself, if he does start, I think he is a good value play at 3K. And then, yeah, LeBron, honestly, I would just rather get to Giannis, rather get to Jokic. I just prefer other spend ups to LeBron. Not saying he's completely out of play. And honestly, Phoenix has been pretty good defensively too. So that's why I'm not super on LeBron. So, and then Schroeder, Kuzma, kind of secondary plays. Really where my main interest lies is with the bigs. With no Marc Gasol. Curious to see who starts. Oh, and Markieff Morris. So Markieff Morris has started the last 4 games. 22, 28, 22, 24 minutes. I'm expecting if he starts again, similar minutes of like mid-20s. And at this price point, that's I'm fine taking a shot at him. So really it's like the cheap bigs here for the Lakers. Harrell, Jones if he plays, Markieff Morris, depending on the starting lineup, obviously. So that's really it, guys. Again, we do not have the Detroit-Toronto game because they're not playing. So let's refresh Fantasy Labs. Let's make sure we're up to date here. We're still waiting on Bogdan news. Okay, I think that's really it. So let's get some questions here. We got about 10 minutes left here. Nerlens Noel, full fade for me. Yeah, he's definitely not a must play. I think the reason why a lot of people are looking to him is because of the minutes. 40 plus the last couple games. So I think that's the reason. Sorry, guys. Morris is so bad, but he is cheap. Yeah. definitely not a must play. There's other value on the slate, but as long as Markieff Morris starts, he's in play for me at that price. Should we run it back with a Washington player if we have 3 Grizzlies? You don't necessarily have to, because I think the Grizzlies are probably the top team to target in the slate. We have Ja and JV at the top, the value there. So I don't think you necessarily have to. How many Grizzlies are too many for tournaments? Looking at 4 minimum now. I think 4 would probably be my limit. Yeah. Bane or Dozier for utility is a good question. I think right now the safer option is Desmond Bane, because if Vlatko Konkar plays again for Denver, then that kind of just limits the minutes for Dozier. Now, like I said, maybe Konkar doesn't play and maybe a lot of those minutes go to Dozier and he gets 25 plus. Then I would probably prefer Dozier, but I think, the safer option is Desmond Bane. John Collins or Michael Porter Jr. is a good question. Both guys that I'm not super high on, but are viable. I know John Collins had a big game last game. He's just been very up and down and normally hovers in the 30 fancy point range. So kind of just a secondary play. And my feelings of Michael Porter Jr. too. It's just never fully trusted minutes. But this game is projected to be a lot higher scoring. I'll go Michael Porter Jr., I guess. It's not one that I love either option, but I'll go MPJ for that one. Are 4 Grizzlies too much? I think that's probably the limit for me. 4. Pirtle or Noel? If you can get to Pirtle, I think I prefer Pirtle. He's a much better point per minute guy, honestly, than Noel right now. DeMar DeRozan or Devin Booker, same salary? That's a good question. I think it's DeMar DeRozan. Would you play either JV or Ja with Bane and Clark? Yeah. Again, Memphis is the team I like the best today. Wagner, I just don't want to mess with the center roulette for Washington. You can just never trust Mo Wagner's minutes. So Bam and Kemba or Kawhi and JV. I would go Kawhi and JV. I don't love Kemba now with Jaylen Brown there. I missed your Spurs breakdown. They should be shorthanded tonight. How do you like DeJounte? Yeah, so no LaMarcus Aldridge. I think that kind of solidifies Jakob Poeltl for minutes, right? I think he plays mid-30s minutes at 6.1K. I actually think he's a pretty decent play at this price. He might be my favorite Spur, to be honest. But, DeJounte Murray, DeMar DeRozan, both of them playing pretty solid minutes. That last game did go to overtime, so we only got, 32 in regulation for DeJounte and 37 for DeRozan. At their respective prices, I would say they're a little bit more contrarian options for tournaments. Not cash game plays, not out of play, but I think there's better optimal plays on the slate than getting to one of those guys. I would prefer DeRozan to DeJounte. I'm just a little bit more confident with him right now. Hey, DK, can someone make a living from DFS, and how would you compare it to sports NBA betting? You can make a living with DFS. It's way harder nowadays. I forget what the stat is, but I think it's 1 to 5% of people that play daily fantasy sports are profitable. So it's a really, really thin margin. So it is pretty hard. I would say when I first started playing, it would be a lot easier. Dylan Brooks or Lonnie Walker is a good question. I don't love Dylan Brooks, but I think I'll go him, especially with slow-mo out. Nunn and Brook Lopez or Rose and Morris is also a good question. I'll go with the first one. That's close, though. How do you feel about Serge Ibaka? I didn't mention Serge Ibaka. I believe he's below 5K, right? Yeah, he's at 4.8. He has played 27 minutes the last couple of games. I'm expecting mid-20s minutes. I think he's just a fair play. Not really a cash game play for me because they have Zubac there, and the minutes can fluctuate for him. Beal or Westbrook? Yeah, again, when they're close in price, I always prefer Westbrook. That's just how I play, because I always like the guys that do more of the peripherals than the guys that... I'm not saying Beal isn't doing the peripherals. He's just doing less of them than Westbrook. Appreciate that, man. Thank you. Bane, Winslow, Randall, JV, Beal, Markieff, and Rose for cash. Okay, so we have Ja, Desmond Bane, Winslow, Randall, JV, Beal, Markieff, and Rose for cash. I'm okay with that. Again, I probably would rather get to Westbrook over Beal, but the good thing with Bradley Beal is when Russell Westbrook is not on the court, he is basically playing the point guard. Thoughts on Winslow? I think one of the better value plays. Lyles or Brook Lopez is a good question. It's close, but I'll go Brook Lopez. More confident with his minutes. Rose, Dragic, Nunn, or Schroeder, tough call. It is tough. I would say I think you should get to one of those Miami guards. So if you don't have any Miami guards, then I would go Dragic or Nunn. Nunn will probably be more popular after the big game, but that doesn't mean he's going to have the big game tonight, right? Like, I might go back to the wall with Dragic. We'll see. How many Grizzlies is too many? I think 4 is probably the limit. Solid, because none of my favorite DFS gurus showed their lineups, no receipts. Appreciate that, man. Thank you. Fred VanVleet out tomorrow. Oh, he is out tomorrow? Okay. Dragic or Nunn? So my answer to that is I don't have a super strong take. Nunn will be more popular, I think. Like, I don't look at ownership, but I'm just basing that off of Nunn had the big game last game. I think people will go there. Dragic was the chalk last game, and he was kind of a bust. So, like, for me, I would rather personally go back to Dragic. I think he'll come in a little bit lower ownership than Nunn, but I think Nunn will be more popular and maybe higher owned in cash games. Could Chris Middleton have one of his fit? He could, but like I'm not really banking on that tonight, especially with Drew back too. How many? And 4 I think. Is JV a cash play? I think he is, because as long as he doesn't get in foul trouble, he should play about 30 minutes. So I think you can go to JV in cash. Which game is going to be the most high scoring game? I think Milwaukee, Denver, or Washington, Memphis. Giannis, Jokic, or Russ? Giannis there. Would you rather have Giannis with Ayton or work Randall with Kawhi? I think I'd rather have Giannis with Ayton. Winslow or Clark? If you can get to Clark. But I like both. Like, Clark's more expensive. So if there's price isn't an issue, Clark. Yeah, high scoring game. It's either Washington, Memphis, or Denver, Milwaukee, I think. Giannis, Jokic, KCP, and Winslow, or Schroeder, DeRozan, Kawhi, and JV. The first one. Even though I don't love KCP, I kind of like more of that Stars and Scrubs build. Favorite spend ups, Giannis at the top. Let's see. So of the spend ups, we have Giannis, Jokic, LeBron, Westbrook, Beal. I think Giannis of this group. So Giannis of that group. Guys, I'm not really on is LeBron. I know he's gonna be lower owned. He could always have one of his vintage LeBron games, but I don't love the matchup, and I just would rather get to Jokic over him, would rather get to Giannis over him, would probably get to one of those Washington guards over him. So Giannis, for me, I think LeBron's probably the fade. Mark with the $5 super chat. DK, you give great advice and honest. Won last night. Had hell high. Thank you, man. That's great that you won. I'm glad you had a good night. I did not have the best of nights because I had both Peach Washington and Miles Bridges. But I appreciate that, and thank you very much for the support. Clark or Tice? Clark. What's more profitable, DFS or parlays? I would say DFS. I don't touch parlays. I don't really sports bet at all. I mean, I'll like here and there, I'll throw a bet in, but like I'm pretty strict to just DFS only. Hero and Nunn or Dragic and Rose. Give me Dragic and Rose. Kind of liking Will Barton versus the Bucks defensive scheme. The force ball handlers hit jump shot. If Barton's shot is on, he's going to crush. I think Barton's a fair play. I think he'll play about 30 minutes. He's going to go overlooked in the slate. Like, he will be low owned. It's a high over-under. I'm fine with that play. Small forward for 5,300 and under. All right, guys, I got to wrap it up here. Another 30 seconds here, and then I do it to leave. So 5,300 and under for small forward. Yeah, so I don't really want to play Lonnie or Gallinari or Bertans. I'm not in love with Dylan Brooks, but like I think we get about 30 minutes from him. It's a good matchup, so I would go Dylan Brooks there. Winslow or Morris is a good question. I think I'm going to go Winslow, but it's really close. I think those two are two of the better value plays. Winslow or Bane, it's almost a coin flip for me. I think I'll go Winslow over Bane, but like, again, Bane is also a good value. Bane, Dozier, or Morris. I think Bane's the safest right now. We know he's starting. We know he's probably going to play mid-20s minutes. Yeah, Randall and Noel are both good. All right, guys. Well, I am going to get out of here, so I appreciate everyone coming to check out the live stream. I appreciate the super chat, too, very, very much. Thanks again.